when Angie and I met, I was at this point in my life where I'm like, I want to continue to give back and I need to work because I feel like I have a higher purpose, but I'm no longer feeling like I'm fulfilling it. I need to do something different. I'm ready for a change. And so we started Boutique Travel Advisors, and I wasn't really sure. I think neither one of us was really sure what was going to happen. It was a new industry for both of us. So anybody who's watching who wants to like switch careers and everyone thinks you're crazy and are like, what are you doing? That was us. People looked at us and are like, you're going to walk away from these extremely well-paying jobs with these amazing benefits. I mean, very lucrative professions. But we had this dream and we just believed in it.
Okay, thanks you guys for joining us. So today we have two special guests. We have Janet. I'm going to say this wrong, just so we're all clear, but you guys are used to this by now if you've been watching the show or listening. So we have Janet Semenova. Okay, good. And Angie Rice. That one was way easier for me. She's going to be like, no, that was wrong. Actually, it's not how I say my name at all.
Sometimes the name gets screwed up, right?
Yeah. So first of all, we would love to welcome them. So Tessa and I have been on a mission. We have been looking for women who are willing to share with us their journey and insight, who are at the high 6, 7, and 8-figure level, right? Because we want you all to see that this is number one, possible, and number two, you can do it without killing yourselves. And these women are the perfect example. So before we jump into like the inquisition that we're about to have, because Tess and I are so excited, but before we do that, if you ladies wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about your background and how you both kind of came together.
You want to start?
Sure. So my background is working as a CPA forensic accountant. So I worked for a lot of publicly traded companies in consulting. And so in that industry, we serviced a lot of large companies, Fortune 500, we worked for government agencies. And I actually worked in a niche that's referred to as litigation consulting. So it was very litigious. So after so many years, I did that well over a decade, I just sort of got frustrated with applying my value and my skill sets to such a litigious environment. And I thought, wow, if these skill sets could be utilized elsewhere. And so, I was still in that industry because the opportunity costs were just so great to leave. And I met Janet. Janet and I actually met on the football field while our sons were playing flag football. And she was sharing with me, she kind of had a lot of the same issues with her profession as a nurse practitioner specializing in pain management. And I'll let Janet talk about her background. And when we met, we really realized that we both were looking for something else. And the thing that brought us together was the fact that we had this passion for travel. And we were also very empowered just as women and as professionals and working moms. So those were the things that we had in common. And we started Boutique Travel Advisors with the goal of servicing multi-generational travelers as well as retreats for women that would be curriculum based. And we started it as a passion project. We both kept our primary jobs, mine in consulting and Janet's as a nurse practitioner.
Initially, that didn't last too long.
No, I mean, the business really took off.
That's awesome. I want to hear more about that, but before we jump into that, let's hear a little bit about your background as well.
So Angie and I's background, we are like yin and yang. We are so polar opposite, but it's like this beautiful chemistry that just works together. I did not come from anything having to do with accounting. I am not a numbers person. Full disclosure, that's not my strong suit at all. But my background is, so I actually immigrated to the United States when I was 7. I was born in Russia, in Uzbekistan actually. And we moved to the US when I was a kid. So I grew up in Chicago and was going to actually pursue business and international business. That was my whole plan going to university. And my mom got sick, and my mom and I'm an only child, and my mom was a single mom, and it was really, really sad and difficult watching her battle cancer. And so she battled it for about 2 years. And then when I was a sophomore in college studying business, she passed away. And I had this like aha moment where I'm like, I need to do something bigger with my life. I have to make a bigger impact. And I, you know, when I was studying all of the business stuff in school, it's very different than being a business owner, right? Like the things that they teach you in school are not really the things that you're applying on a daily basis. And I didn't feel a connection to business. And I felt like I needed something that had more of a human connection and a human impact. So I switched majors, switched everything, and pursued nursing, and actually then went on to graduate school and became a nurse practitioner. And I was a pediatric pain management nurse practitioner for over a decade, which was the most rewarding, fulfilling, incredible job on the planet. But I became a mom, right actually when I graduated from my master's program. And, you know, raising kids and working with really sick kids for over a decade wears on your heart and your soul. And when Angie and I met, I was at this point in my life where I'm like, I want to continue to give back and I need to work because I feel like I have a higher purpose, but I'm no longer feeling like I'm fulfilling it. I need to do something different. I'm ready for a change. And so we started Boutique Travel Advisors, and I wasn't really sure. I think neither one of us was really sure what was going to happen. It was a new industry for both of us. So anybody who's watching who wants to like switch careers and everyone thinks you're crazy and are like, what are you doing? That was us. People looked at us and are like, you're going to walk away from these extremely well-paying jobs with these amazing benefits. I mean, very lucrative professions. But we had this dream and we just believed in it and it took off. And I think there was some luck and timing and synergy and working together and bringing our joint, very different personalities and skill sets to create this like yin and yang. And it took off. And really pretty quickly, people started approaching us and are like, how are you guys growing your business so fast? How are you guys getting press? I saw you on the news. I heard you on the radio. I saw you guys written up in these articles. What is going on? Where did you guys come from? And we were lucky enough, we won some awards, and people just in the industry and other industries are like, how are you scaling your business? And so we had a pause, of course, during the pandemic, all of us did. And Angie and I said, like, we need to do something with all of this knowledge that we have. And so we decided, Angie worked in consulting for over 15 years. We've both now been business owners. So we started our second business together, which was Centered CEOs, to help entrepreneurs really achieve their big dreams.
I'm so excited to see what you guys come up with. I mean, you just keep coming up with newer and more exciting ideas, which is very inspirational for Kai and I, who have been partnered for a while doing the same thing. So it's
I love
awesome.
Other partnerships. I feel like when you have the right partner, it's almost like a good marriage. Like 1 + 1 is like 20, 100, 1,000 versus what we could each achieve on our own.
Oh yeah, I agree. Amen. I'm just gonna.
That's true. That's true. I love it, and I'm so curious how you guys did grow. That is one of our questions, actually, isn't it, Kai? How you grew, and but so we could dive into that if you want, Kai. Just go into that, how you built your business up, or you could talk more about this new venture and how you're building it now. So it's whichever direction you guys want to go. And we usually do lots of
start with the growth of our initial business and then how we launched into Centered CEOs. So that's a natural progression. So when we started Boutique Travel Advisors, we always had the concept to create curriculum-based retreats that would support, primarily initially, we were focused on women professionals that had the struggle of work-life balance, because we both knew how important it was to establish that balance. And our business took off so quickly in the direction of servicing luxury travelers that we sort of put the retreats a little bit on hold, but at the same time, we were working on the curriculum. And we did do some bookings of some group travelers where we could incorporate some of that curriculum, but it just was sort of backburnered a little bit so that we could establish the growth of Boutique Travel Advisors. Because I think what happens as a business owner, you start your business and you have to remember you need to allow for time for that growth to occur. And a lot of times you have to prepare. And for us, it was natural that we had to grow much faster than, let's say, the average travel advisor with 2 partners or even 1 partner, because our opportunity cost was so great. Janet as a nurse practitioner with a master's degree, myself with a certified fraud examiner's license and a CPA license. And so we had to back into what we were making in our prior careers. And as an analyst myself, I told Janet, okay, you know, we kind of have to disclose what we need to make for this to work. And in doing that, we had a number that we had to make within a year's time. And then we had before we even started our business, we knew what we wanted to make in year 2 and year 3. So that otherwise we wouldn't have the buy-in from our husbands. I mean, to be honest, they're going to be like, look, you're contributing a lot less to this family, and they count on our income. So we were very precise in what we needed to make in order for this to work.
Strategic.
And it motivated us, and we exceeded every year's goals from a financial perspective and then some. And the things to allow for growth, you kind of have to know where you need to be and when. And sometimes you have to recognize you might have to invest in your business. There might be some equity that has to take place, because that's how you're going to get the ROI. Organic growth is wonderful, but it's time consuming. Yes. And it's not going to happen as fast as if you're making investments. So our first year, we did have an amount of money that we needed to take home, so to speak, but we also put a lot of money back into our business.
Can I just say,
to grow.
Whether or not people are religious, I feel like the only phrase for what I'm feeling is to say preach, because I feel like it's just so good. Like, we're constantly telling people, you know, organic growth is beautiful when it happens, but it isn't. Not all of us have that kind of time.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
Like, okay, well, I hope that after I've posted 1,000 posts, that eventually I'll have 10 people following me, and then they'll pay, you know what I mean? But that's literally what organic growth is. But we have so many people who are making millions, so to speak, and they're telling you like, hey, you can do this in 30 days without spending any money except on my program. And you're just like, is anybody seeing the disconnect here? Like, you can spend money on my program.
We see that all the time. That's a huge frustration that I have, because I think Angie and I both come from, I mean, it's also integrity. Like, we have a lot of integrity. That's just our personality. But we come from professions that are A, very highly regulated, and B, very ethically based, right? And so for us, like, we're just both very honest people. And I think I see these things sometimes, and initially I'm like, is this real? Like, can this be? All of these things, you know, you start getting these Facebook ads, and it's like, oh, $0 to $1 million in 30 days, no work needed, no experience necessary. You don't have to be an expert. You really don't need to know anything. Just buy my program and you're going to become a millionaire. And I get so frustrated, because I feel like that is such a disservice to small business owners everywhere. And it's such a disservice to people who are really working in their business, working on their business, investing and grinding. Because let's be honest, we have to grind, at least in the beginning, to get to where we are. It's such a disservice, because it feels extremely like you're a failure. You see these things that come up in these commercials and these advertisements, and it makes you feel like you're not enough, you're wrong, what you're doing is not correct. And I think that the honest truth is, there is nothing that will ever happen in your life without hard work, right? I mean, unless you win the lottery, like, nobody's going to walk up to you and be like, I'm going to pay you $50,000 to be part of your program. I don't know who you are. You don't need to have any experience. I don't need to know you, like you, or trust you. I'm just going to give you my money. No, but that doesn't happen. And so I think honesty is so important, and especially in this digital age where we're just bombarded with information, it's so hard to filter what's real and what's not real.
How to get to the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so good, you guys.
It's and we're such good content. I know. We will have to do feature interviews just to get all this knowledge out of you.
We're just raw. Like, what you see is what you get.
Absolutely. And for us, you know, our growth was definitely rapid in year 1 and year 2, to a point where, you know, there was that time frame where we had to sit down and be honest with each other that we were starting to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so we had to create structure in our business. We had to start delegating more to our team, which everyone knows when you grow your team, sometimes there's a loss of profitability that has to take place in order to make that
and
up.
productivity
Yes.
initially when you're training people.
Yep. So you have to, recognize that there's going to be those dips in your business. But again, if you don't invest in a team, you are not going to be able to reach those higher levels because you're going to max out very, very quickly. So we were able to work on developing our team, training our team, creating niches within our team, which really helps to better service our clients. And then we created processes. So a lot of the processes that are now going to be launched as part of Centered CEO. So we're taking that curriculum and those retreats and we're rebranding them along with our consulting business under the name Centered CEO, so that there's that disconnect so we can market them, because the clients we'll be serving in our travel business are quite different than the clients that we'll focus on in our Centered CEO business. But there will be some ways that the companies will overlap. For example, BTA will manage the retreats for Centered CEOs. And
Very
really
smart.
by building up that team, it's allowed us to focus on the curriculum with Centered CEOs. And we utilize the framework in our travel business in terms of how we've grown that travel business to support our clients in Centered CEOs.
So awesome. So I have a follow-up question because it has to be asked. So you're talking about, okay, so you need to really know that in the first few years that you've got to invest if you want to grow. So what exactly, for everyone who's watching this, they're going to be like, well, what do I invest in? I have no idea where to put that money, or maybe I don't have a ton of money, but I really want to grow. So what should I be spending my money on, or what should I be thinking about and saving for to help propel me forward?
Yeah.
It's such a good question, because if you separated Angie and I and put us in these silent rooms, we would probably give you two very different answers, right? So we have the CPA here who's very much like a numbers person and wants to know what is the ROI on everything. And I'm much more the creative person. And I think the truth is that it varies for every business, right? So every business is going to be different, but I think you have to have a balance. And our whole approach to running businesses and our life in general is finding that balance, because you have to invest in the creative side, right? You have to, whatever you're offering or selling or building has to be unique. You have to have a market dominating position. You have to be able to identify who your ideal clients are. And to get to that, you might have to invest. You might have to invest in yourself. You might have to figure out who you truly are. What do you really bring to the table? You might have to invest in some coaching or mentoring, but then you also have to invest in things that are going to be able to give you a predictable ROI. And that's probably what Angie would say would be the first thing. And I'd probably say invest in yourself first, but
right. I think it's important when you're investing money that you also equally look at time is also money. So what expenses are you incurring and where are you investing your time? Because they both have an ROI and they both generate revenue. So a perfect example, well, something that we really practice in our business and it's what we advise our clients to do is really, you need to identify your strengths. You need to identify your weaknesses. Weaknesses are just as important as strengths. So you know who to recruit for your team. And I think naturally, we sometimes identify with people who have the same strengths as we do. But for your business, it's more important to bring new talent into your business so that they can support your business in the areas where you're weak. And I think as far as spending money and where to invest dollars, I think it's important that you sort of spread the wealth. And what I mean by that is you're investing in your administrative responsibilities so that they're automated, for example. It's really important to automate administrative tasks.
yeah.
You're investing in sales, you're investing in marketing, you're investing in operations. Because if you're putting all your money into marketing and you don't have a good product or a good service because you're not investing on the ops side, that marketing is going to waste.
Yeah, for
and if you have a great product and you've invested all your dollars in the product and you have no money left over for marketing,
no one's going to know that
right.
your product is amazing, right? Nobody's going to know about you. So we created this mantra in BTA and we use it for Centered. I mean, we created it really in the process of creating our MAPS framework, which really came very organically, but it's elevate, delegate, replicate. So we want to, our whole goal with our business and ourselves and all of our clients is elevate. what do you elevate? You elevate your brand, you elevate your products and your services, you elevate yourself, and you elevate your team, right? Be the very, very best version of yourself, and let your team, if you have a team, reach their full potential, right? So really nurture that zone of genius, really nurture the natural talents that your team and you possess, and that your business it will shine through. And then delegate everything else. You should really, and I think business owners, and especially as women, I think this is particularly hard for women, because as women, we talked about it off air, right? Like, we just make time out of thin air, like, oh, can you run to the store and pick up my prescription? Can you do this? We are always putting things on our plate. And when we run a business, we have to learn to let things go. We have to learn to delegate the things that we are either not exceptional at or that are below our pay grade to other people, so that we can really invest and elevate the parts of our business that we can directly impact. And then we replicate those processes and procedures in every area of our business. So that's kind of our mantra: elevate, delegate, replicate. We say it like 500 times a day. And we have to remind ourselves too, because there's times that we get sucked into things, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, I just wasted a full hour of my life on a phone call that really could have been done by an assistant. There was no reason for me to have spent an hour of my time on that. What could I have done with that hour that would have really generated a lot more ROI in my business?
Dang, we could just drop the mic right here.
I know. And that's it. That has so many benefits packed into, from both of your perspectives coming together, being able to balance. I mean, so many good things. Like I can hear the little mini clips coming out of that, Kai, like crazy. I'm like, oh yeah, there's one. I stopped writing them down because I was like, the whole thing's great. So that's amazing.
True, right? Like, we put so many things on our plate. And as I'm sitting here saying this, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to pick up my husband's prescription. He's going to kill me. I have to go run and do that after this. Like, and everything that people ask us to do, like, we're just used to saying, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I'll be class mom, and I'll be the volunteer for the field trip, and I'll commit to these 77 interviews, and yes, I'll take on 5 new clients, and I'll do the laundry and make dinner and run around and do errands. Like, we do so much, but we have to remember our time is really valuable, and we have to invest in ourselves.
You have to know when to take that time out. And I know we were talking about your team environment, but it's also delegating and outsourcing to independent contractors or service providers. And for those that are mothers who are married, you need to outsource to your husband sometimes too. So you have to remember, we have to remember that, if you have a team at home that supports you, or families and friends, that we all have to lean on each other, and we get stuck in these roles. We have to remember that there's a time and place to ask for help.
And it's not shameful to ask for help. In fact, it's actually something that people that helps you to bond with people. When you ask for someone to help and you let them in and you build your team up, as opposed to just trying to control everything. The perfectionism trap, right?
When you delegate things to your team that maybe they're not 100% ready for, or to an independent, whoever it is, right? Even when we delegate things to each other, you have to let go of some of that control. And you have to know that it's not going to be done exactly the way that you would have done it. And that's okay, because A, it's a learning process, and B, beautiful things might come out of it that you would have never thought of, right? And so, like, when I worked in healthcare, I did a lot of mentoring. Like, I had nursing students. I did lots of resident education, lots of nurse practitioner students, and we would have rotations where they came on our team and spent time with us. And that was something that we were really conscientious of, letting them take the lead and letting them, sometimes they succeeded, sometimes they had some hiccups or failures, but we kind of let them spread their wings and go for it and try. And that really inspired them to A, work harder, and B, to really learn and accept the challenges, right? Because when you are running a business, you're never going to be able to take care of every single issue that comes up in your business. And, I think that that's a lot of the reason that so many small business owners are not able to really scale. It has nothing to do with their product, their service, their brand, and oftentimes not even their marketing. It's the inability to let go sufficiently to be able to grow.
Yes. So when we were, no, go for it, please.
You make mistakes in your business, and your team, when you start delegating, you're going to have mistakes early on. Yeah. But those are the mistakes. We learn so much from your mistakes, right? I mean, I know I learned so much from my mistakes. And I think some of the mistakes we made early on in our businesses, we were able to troubleshoot those mistakes. And now those are the areas where we have a lot of strengths. It's, you know, it's part of our uniqueness, is that we've been able to solve problems that are difficult problems in our industry. Everyone in our industry, those are the same types of problems. But because we allowed ourselves to fail, and we said, okay, we do not want that to happen again. How do we troubleshoot this? And we came up with better solutions because we allowed ourselves to go through that process of failure.
So good. Well, what I was going to say is that when Tessa and I were talking about this, and we're like, you know, we need to bring on some ladies. And we were asking, and I'm like, because I'm a business coach. So she's like, can't you bring on anybody that you know? I was like, I could, but none of them, they're all making 7 figures, but they're all stressed out and they don't have a life, and they
haven't figured it out.
I can't bring them on air and be like, hey, here's some advice from somebody who's killing themselves right now. It's good times. So it's so nice to be here.
As a business owner, like, how do you find that balance? And I think if you are not able to delegate, you're going to have a really, really hard time finding balance in your life. And you're not going to be able to run a sustainable business. That's the sad reality, right?
Yes. And what I'm hearing from you guys is that this started early on. So a lot of the people that I know who are in this bracket, they're like 25 years in. And so they're telling me like, oh, I want things to change. And then so I go in, I try to change it. And then, but they're so addicted to working that they don't know how to sever themselves from it. Not to say it's impossible, but they're at this point where, you know, teaching an old dog new tricks is a possibility, but it's also a miracle at the same time. It's very difficult. So what I'm hearing is that you all started this early on in your business. It wasn't something that you were like, let's wait until we've got, you know, $1,000 million, $100 billion, and then we'll do that. Okay.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we hit that roadblock emotionally, and we were able to recognize, like, this is not healthy, this is not sustainable. When we were in the super rapid growth, I guess it was probably year 2, we were in this, I mean, it was like a blur now looking back, because we were working constantly. And even though we were bringing on team members and we were delegating, we weren't establishing boundaries. And I think that, you know, so even though we knew what we wanted for our business, we were comfortable delegating responsibilities, we didn't establish boundaries with our clients, and we didn't establish boundaries with ourselves. And so I think that's a major roadblock that so many small business owners face, is that lack of boundaries. And how do you establish boundaries to where you say, this is within the scope of what I'm going to do, these are the hours in which I'm going to do it, and outside of that scope is either going to be more money, it's going to have to be delegated, or it's not going to get done, you know, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to, you know, say it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or sometimes 8 o'clock and you're still working. I'm going to shut down my computer for the night.
Well, yeah, we do want to know if you struggle with perfectionism at any point as you went into this and grew, and how you got over that, if that is what happened, or are you still struggling
100%. With Yes.
And I think our prior professions really helped us come to fruition, that we had to let go of some of that perfectionism. Some things allow for no margin of error, and Janet can speak of that in medicine. Of course, you have to have a high degree of accuracy when you're prescribing patients medicines. Now, for me as an accountant, we had a high degree of accuracy as well. There's a lot of crossing the T's, dotting the I's. And so we noticed that natural perfectionism in our personality, as well as our prior professions, where it was really, you couldn't allow for as much margin of error, was affecting us from a productivity perspective. And we were double checking and spending too much time where it wasn't necessary. So then we realized that we had to carve out and identify where perfection is required to a higher degree, and things where you have to accept that it's as good as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And you can get closer to perfection with it not being perfection, where it's more about, okay, this is accurate. This is exceeding our clients' expectations. And the way you do that is through processes and procedures.
Yeah.
We follow our processes and procedures very carefully because that allows you to have a high degree of accuracy without getting caught into the productivity issues that you'll find if you're trying to be a perfectionist.
Yeah, totally. 100% agree with what Angie said there. Again, when I worked in pain management, I was prescribing really strong medications for children. And a lot of the children were critically ill and there was no margin of error. I mean, you're off by 0.01 milligrams could literally be the difference between life and death. And so I was very, very conscientious, right? But what I find is, and I think one of the ways to overcome perfectionism is to become an expert. Because when you start out doing what you're doing, you have to double check your work and triple check your work and look up your sources and make sure you're doing things right. By the time I prescribed, morphine for the 100,000th time, probably more than that, I was pretty confident, so I would have checked it, but I wasn't spending an hour checking all of my orders. Because I was comfortable enough and my level of expertise was high enough that I could do this pretty quickly and effectively and efficiently and accurately. Then when we started our business, it was like going back to square one, and Angie and I naturally are very much perfectionists. And so we were double and triple checking things and making sure and looking at the numbers. As we got more comfortable and more confident, and our expertise just really grew, we were more comfortable letting things go and knowing that once in a while there might be a small error and that's okay. And we're all human, so we're all going to make mistakes. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, mistakes at some point are going to happen, and everybody makes mistakes and that's okay. They're a learning opportunity. But the other thing I'll say with perfectionism, I'm also a very creative person. And those two things collide all the time because it's really hard to be creative and also be perfect. There's no perfection. Like we've been writing this book now for months and months, and I'm like such a perfectionist. I double and triple check it. I've like rewritten parts of it like 97 times because I want it to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's evolving. I'm evolving. We're human beings. And so I think when you're too much in the trenches and in the weeds, you really can't see the bigger picture, and it might preclude you actually from creating something better.
Or just delivering it all together.
Or delivering, right. Mm-hmm. And then you get exhausted. And when you look at something for the 10,000th times and make edits, it's like, remember when you're in school and you're taking a test and you're like really nervous. And so you get all your answers and then you go back. Remember, like, I think we're all old enough where we had those, the pencils that we would
Scantrons.
Yes. We would like circle in the bubbles. And then what I would do is I would take my whole test, and I'd usually be done fast because I'm a fast reader. And I would go back through every question. And half the time I would change my answer. Well, 90% of the time I changed my answer, I changed it to the wrong answer from the right answer. And I think that's what happens to so many of us. We're like, oh, maybe this is wrong. Maybe I didn't do this right. Maybe I could do this better. And we end up coming up with a product that might actually be subpar and spending a lot of time that could be used, on more important things.
I absolutely agree. I'm the same way. I look at the end results. I think you guys are doing what you're talking about as far as like, what is expected of you, and your processes and procedures help you to say, this is still exceeding expectations in your world, in your eyes, for your customers, but it's not the extra 20 hours you could put in. It's adequate.
And I think processes and procedures are so important because people who are naturally perfectionists, when you have processes and procedures, it allows you to focus your energy and your attention and really be able to get through things and feel confident that you're hitting all the marks, right? That you're checking all the boxes because you have a process and procedure. It's much more difficult to Q&A, like to quality control yourself when you don't have processes and procedures, because what are you really measuring yourself up against, right? And what are your standards? Like we have a lot of standards for different things, and you know, that we incorporated from our past professions that we incorporated into both of our businesses, which we have standards for things, and we have checklists. And so we're able to say, check, 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 done, done, done. And so we know that things were completed and that they were completed appropriately because we've been able to check mark them without spending 25 hours, you know, going back through and.
Yes. And I just want to highlight that because I think we talk to people about processes and strategies, and whenever you talk to someone, it's kind of like this glazed over look, like I have to create a process. And for those of you who are struggling perfectionists, the thing about it is that it helps your brain to not worry so much. That's what, at least what I find, is because I have a checklist. As long as I've done everything on this checklist, then I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then if something still goes wrong, then I add it to the checklist, or I, you know, put in something in place to make sure that we're not doing that again. But you have to start somewhere. And what I'm hearing is that, number one, you're not gonna ever get to perfectionism, and to get close to it, you need to at least just do it, right? Because one, you're learning from your mistakes, and number two, you're really not going to know what's wrong with anything until you do it, and there's nothing to put out there. That's what I'm hearing. Is that pretty accurate?
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, like, back to the processes for a second, the other thing it allows you to do is when you're growing and scaling your business, there's going to be whatever your industry is, it doesn't matter. There's going to be things that go wrong. Sometimes they might be small things, sometimes they might be big things. Sometimes it's a small thing that has like a snowball effect and has some sort of, you know, a catastrophic effect on something that happens in your business. You have a really unhappy client, something is not delivered. When you have processes and procedures, you're able to do what we call a root cause analysis, where you can really go back and figure out exactly what went wrong and where it went wrong. When you don't have processes and procedures, it's very, very hard to take a bad situation and dissect it down and figure out, okay, this is where the mistake happened. This is what we need to do in the future to prevent it from happening again.
So good. So good. I just feel like, you know, when you watch a movie, like, I don't know, probably I have a husband who likes to watch really corny things sometimes. And so I feel like I'm watching it, and in my mind, I'm hearing, you know, like the angels singing or something. like if everyone else had this, you know, this musical background, like they would know exactly where me and Tessa are like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh my, yeah, like please guys, I hope you're taking notes. That's the first thing. If not, rewind and listen again. Because it's gold.
So much stuff that seems like it's common sense is actually things that are only common sense once you've heard it or been told it, right? Like, and we get those moments all the time where I'm like, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. And it's like a light bulb goes off, something clicks, like, oh, this is why I need to have a process and procedure. And if you have, you know, or whatever, this is why I need to have boundaries with my clients. This is why I need to, you know, establish a routine. And so much of it is really just hearing it in the right context from the right person in the right situation. And I think, like, I love inspirational, like, stories. I love to listen to podcasts. I'm obsessed with how I built this. And I love to listen to the stories of people who just create something and all of the hurdles that they overcome, because there's no such thing as this like straight path up. Like, we started this business and we became successful overnight. BS. That doesn't happen. Like, everyone has issues. Everyone has unhappy clients. We've all lost sleep over things that we didn't do right. Oh, well, it's a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. Start again.
That's so awesome. Tessa, do you have any questions? I have one more question to kind of wrap us up, but just in case, Tessa, you wanted to follow up with anything, I want to make sure.
Nope. I'm in complete agreement with everything you guys have said, and I'm excited to implement it in our business.
Yeah, so here's my last question, just to round this all up. The reason, as I said in the very beginning, that we approached 7-figure and up CEOs was because we want, or not CEOs, but business owners, is because we wanted women to really see that this is a possibility. And in case you guys weren't listening, they started this business together in 2017. This is the beginning of 2021, and 2020 was a pandemic. So just so we're clear, this happened in a short period of time. and they did not have this background for travel, for business, blah, blah, blah. I want everyone to really understand that. And then I want to ask you ladies, number one, so it's a two-part question. Number one is, what would you tell women who are watching this and they've been struggling to get their business going and they just don't know if they should be doing this? You know, what would you tell them to inspire them to, you know, encourage them to keep pushing? That's the first question. And then the second question is, and I know what you're going to say, but I'm just going to put this out there, is it possible to get past that 7-figure mark, to get, you know, hit that ceiling at 6 and to finally get to the 7? Is that possible? Right. And do you have to kill yourself to do it?
Yeah. Those are a lot of loaded questions, but I think we can answer them.
Yeah. I love loaded questions.
So, I mean, first and foremost, do you have a business plan? And I know that traditionally speaking, we think business plans are for financing. If you're going to go to a bank and you're going to borrow money, they're going to want a business plan. But that business plan is more for you. I think we've moved to this digital world and we've moved away from writing a plan because we feel like everything is at our fingertips and we've got it organized in a file, or I know if I need to refer back to this, it's in my file under marketing. If I need to refer back to this, it's under my file called sales. And we don't put the pieces together and we don't formalize a plan. I think any business owner, I don't care what size, you can do a business plan in 2 pages. You can lay out your goals and your objectives, and they can be measurable, which is very important. If you set goals that aren't measurable, you're not going to achieve them. If you don't have goals, even if you succeed, your expectations, if you don't write them down, you don't know what your plan was. So you really don't know if you did better than you anticipated or whether you fell short because you didn't formalize it. You have no way of knowing it.
There's no time machine in your mind where you can do like a time hop and be like, this is what I thought on December 31st, 2020. You know, it doesn't exist unless you write it down.
And then you have to take those larger goals. I mean, I would redo your business plan at least once a year.
Yeah.
And you need to set 3 or 4 large goals that are incorporated into your business plan. You need to cover all areas of discipline. So you have these bigger goals. How does it affect my operations? How does it affect my sales? How does it affect my people and my team? How does it affect my time? How does it affect my budget? How much do I have to spend? So you have to cover all those areas, but your goals can be laid out. You don't have to lay out all of those details in your business plan. The way that you achieve those goals are by setting quarterly goals and by setting weekly goals and tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis. So for me, I do more of our networking. Janet does more of our creative and she organizes the content and our materials. I don't like Canva. She loves it. I like, she's more intimidated about talking about sales and offers and prices and agreements and things like that. But for me, in order for me to commit to the networking that is necessary to succeed in our business, I know how many calls I am going to make a week. I know how many networking events I'm going to attend in a week. If I don't achieve those weekly goals, I am not going to achieve the monthly goals, which all result in us achieving those overall goals. And Janet sets the same framework for her tasks that allow us to achieve our goals.
Yeah, I'm big on what we call micro goals, and we have, our team that are, we have independent contractors in our travel business, and we had this conversation with them yesterday because it's a really difficult time in the travel world, and it's really easy to kind of lose hope, right? When you're like, business is not going well, the world is in a bad place, the politics, everything. Like you turn on the news, it's depressing. It's very easy to get down, and then to get yourself back motivated is really challenging. And so we talk to our team a lot about, okay, we need you to set micro goals. What's a micro goal? A micro goal is something that you can 100% achieve today without putting in an exorbitant amount of effort, right? So I am huge on micro goals, and you have to write them down and then you have to check them off. And what micro goals do is A, they hold you accountable to yourself, but B, they also give you the confidence to then go on and go after bigger things, right? Because if you know you can achieve these 3 things, well, tomorrow maybe I'll put 5 things on my goal list. Maybe I'll put something a little bit more complicated on my list. Okay, I achieved everything that I set out to achieve. I feel good about myself.
It gives you confidence. And you have to set goals that are reasonable and achievable, or you're going to
and measurable, always measurable.
Otherwise, you're going to find yourself failing. And if you keep finding yourself going down that rabbit hole of failure, you are going to lose confidence. You're going to lose motivation. Yes. So you have to set goals that you know that you have the resources, both time and money, to achieve those goals, as well as the expertise. If you don't quite have the expertise to achieve those goals, then you're going to have to invest in training, coaching, curriculum, and things like that. We also outline our days, and we're very, very consistent because it allows us to create different mindsets for the different types of tasks that are required. So for Mondays, it's really our mindful mindset day where we really refuel and we allow ourselves to be creative and to brainstorm. Tuesdays is our day where we both know we don't have a lot of availability outside of working with each other. It's our collaboration day. We do a Facebook Live every Tuesday in our travel business, and we do a Facebook Live every day in our We Are Centered CEO, or Tuesday, I'm sorry. And it's so important to have those communities, because I think a lot of times you build these communities and it allows you to reach a larger audience. And that's one thing that I think has really allowed us to succeed. And I'll kind of touch on that and go back to our weekly schedule. But it's so important that you recognize, I think a lot of people try to network to the ideal client directly. Sometimes the very best way to reach your ideal client is through somebody else.
It's a back door.
Yeah, it's easier for someone else to say, this person is fantastic, this company, you need to hire them, than for you to sell yourself directly to that ideal client. So creating this larger community, and we do it through our Facebook groups, we also do it through our networks, and through we use our friends and family more to help utilize their relationships so that we have a greater connectivity to a larger community. Yeah. And we've been very, that's where most of our clients come from, that larger community that we've created through our Facebook groups, as well as through our other networks.
Yeah.
And then Wednesdays are really our days where I do a lot of sales calls. Janet does a lot of curriculum. And then we reconnect on Thursdays. That's our day. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are our partnership days. Yeah. That's when we can expect to engage each other more frequently. And Friday's really our to-do list. If we didn't get something done Monday through Friday, then we better get it done by Friday. And part of Friday is also preparing for the next week.
Yeah. So your original question of can you do it? Yes. I think the one thing that's absolutely necessary, and I don't care what career you're in, what business you're starting, or what industry, you have to have somebody you have to have an accountability partner. You have to have a mentor. And I mean, I am huge on mentorship, whether it's a coach that you pay or it's a mentor that you find in your community. I mean, I could not have gotten anywhere in my life that I've gotten without mentorship. And I find, some of the mentors I've had in my life, I will be eternally grateful for, that I still keep in touch with. I have mentors all the way back from my school days. And these are people that really will inspire you, that will show you what's possible, and that believe in you. You have to have people in your corner that believe in you, that are not your friends and family. Mm-hmm. Because if all you have is your friends and family, their bad day is going to be your bad day. And they don't want to hear about, even our husbands, they don't want to hear about our business all day long. Like, they have their own jobs. Like, my husband does not come home. My husband's an ER doctor. He comes home during the pandemic. He doesn't want to hear anything. Like, he's like, when are we eating? I want to watch TV. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally drained. If he was the only person I had to be my cheerleader, it would be a really difficult time. It would be really difficult for me to be able to be successful. And so I think it's super, super important to have mentors and coaches and people in your corner who see you for who you are and can see the big picture when you're kind of stuck in the weeds.
That's so amazing. Now, we only have 1 minute. We promised them that we would let them off at 5, even though I could keep asking questions.
No, we'll have to schedule more.
It's just so good. You guys are amazing, just for the record, in case you don't know. #goals. That's all I'm going to say. I feel like that's going to be plastered all over the videos and everything.
Micro goals.
Micro goals. That's true.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, everyone watching, you can see that it is possible. So that's number one. They've done it in less than 3 years, less than that, actually. And you've heard all of this amazing advice that I hope you guys take to heart. But here's the last thing. Where can they find you if they want more?
We have a We Are Centered CEOs Tribe on Facebook. It's a community. We go live every Tuesday. We're totally available to like answer questions in the group. We have a website, www.centeredceos.com, and you can find us on Facebook at Centered CEOs.
That's so awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for just spending this time with us and for sharing your wisdom. Like, this was literally the hardest thing, was finding people who were willing to share. So we're so grateful to you all. And we know that, I mean, we'll be stalking you from now on.
Yeah. And sharing and helping to create, send people over to you for sure.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring to be with other women and to be with other entrepreneurs who have been on this journey and really want to give back. Like,